Hi, Coach. How's it going? Good. How are you?
Doing great. Yeah, really exciting week for us here. Super pumped about the crowd that we're about to see in Autzen. I think there's a lot of excitement surrounding these games. I know our players are really pumped to get out there. I think Coach Sanders has done a great job, obviously, with his team. He's created a lot of momentum, and they've done phenomenal in their first 3 games. So this will be a fun one for us.
Starting on the left in the middle, Rob.
You're kicking off conference play in a league that has generated a lot of attention for the success the last few weeks. Just your reaction to kind of how the league has comported itself through non-conference play, and then going into the meat of conference play.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great teams in this conference, and I think that's really evident with how they've performed outside of the conference, right? We kind of talked to our players about, hey, preseason over, right? You've been playing, opposing conferences, other teams, but now this is when we get into the meat and potatoes of what really matters for us and our goals that we want to accomplish. So there's some great teams. I think we'll continue to see that each week. I think we have a really tough schedule and certainly a tough opponent coming up here this week.
Front left, James.
Dan, in addressing the penalties and creating accountability, how far are you willing to take it in accountability? And I ask in that if there's a delay of game, does Bo come out? Where the CQ exchange with Jackson, he had 2 illegal men downfield.
If it was their fault, it wasn't their fault.
On the men downfield bit? Okay.
Yeah, it's coaching error. It was something we got to improve.
On the right, Zach.
Travis Hunter has talked before about his relationship with you. Sounds like he won't be playing this game, but I'm curious what you think of, what you thought of what you've seen from him so far this year and his career at Colorado so far.
Yeah, he's a special player. I absolutely hate that for Travis. He's a dynamic kid. He's got a special personality and obviously is tremendous on the football field. And he certainly gave them an edge. So I hope he gets healthy soon. I hate not to get to see him play in this game because, he's meant for a stage like this, the stage that we're going to have this Saturday.
Second row left, Eric.
What stands out on film with Colorado offense and defense?
Yeah, Sean Lewis, their offensive coordinator, does a phenomenal job. He creates a lot of issues. They're the fastest paced team in our conference. They're obviously passing for a ton of yards. Their quarterback's playing as well as anybody right now, and he has a really good grasp of their system. And I think that they do a great job of connecting on balls down the field, having a lot of change-ups, creating some efficiencies in their offense with the tempo that they move with. Defensively, Coach Kelly does a great job. We're kind of cut from the same tree as far as philosophy and how he operates, and I think they're playing, well within their scheme. They understand their strengths, their weaknesses. They understand how to utilize their players, and I think that shows up, throughout the film for them.
Second row right, Jared.
Yeah, on that note, obviously with Travis out, how do you go about the challenge of trying to stop their 2 other receivers, Weaver and Horn, just with how much success they've had this season?
Yeah, they're both really, really talented. They're really good. They're people we have to be aware of, on every snap. And they're certainly not the only ones, right? Their running back right now is a guy that we recruited out of Derby, Kansas, and he'll probably be the fastest man on the field almost every time he's on the field, if not every time he's on the field on Saturday. He's got elite speed. Weaver's been performing at a really, high level. But they're dynamic. We got to make sure we know where those threats are at and we can take care of them.
Front left, James.
With Charles Kelly, but how similar is what he's running to what either Pete ran last year or Jeremy Pruitt ran, or what you guys are running now? How much crossover is there in similarity to what Bo has seen before and sees every day in practice?
There's similarities, but it's certainly not the same. There's definitely things that we've modified that they don't do, and there's certainly some things that they do that we don't do, but there's definitely some similarities.
All the way in the back, Matt.
What's made Sanders such a good quarterback transferring from the FCS level to this level?
I think he always keeps his eyes downfield and looking for opportunities to find open receivers, and that's something his wideouts have done a great job of. When he's had several scramble opportunities, but I would describe him as a guy that scrambles to throw, not necessarily scramble to run. But when he has to run with his feet, he can. He's extended plays, and when you extend plays, it's hard to cover for a long time, right? So we have to do a good job of not allowing him to extend plays, but also make sure that we plaster guys in the back end when he does.
Front right, Zach.
Going back to this last weekend, Cole Martin moved around a lot in the secondary. He played deep. He played up in the box. He was in the slot. Is that a product of you looking for where he fits best, or more of you kind of utilizing his versatility more?
Yeah, combination of both, right? We talk about always we want to multi-train players at multiple positions so we can always have their strengths. Cole's a really good football player, probably regardless of what position you put him at, and just trying to figure out, exactly where he can help us and making sure that we can have our best 11 on the field.
On the back left there, Jared.
Dan, just your thoughts on the linebacker room and where specifically they can improve and what they've done or what they've excelled at so far this year.
Yeah, I think they've gotten a lot better game to game. You know, there's been a lot of improvements in general, just in our tackling and execution. I think they've been really good communicators as a whole. You know, they're really the signal callers on your defense. Certainly some more levels for growth for them, but I won't get into specifics on things that they can get better. They know exactly what I expect from them.
Second row left, Eric.
We often ask you to assess the play of your players, but Will's now had 3-game sample size for you to kind of assess how he's done. How have you felt he's handled things, and I guess the nuances of being on the field as well?
Yeah, I think our coaching staff's done a phenomenal job just in general in adjustments and understanding what we want to accomplish, but even better at having a critical eye of themselves of where they can improve the next week, right? And I think that's one of the best things that we do is how we approach a Sunday and not looking at just the result or the scoreboard, but looking about where we can improve moving forward. So Will and everybody on the offensive staff and Tosh and everybody on the defensive staff and then special teams with Joe, I mean, I think all units have really done a good job of that.
Back right, Trevor.
What impressed you the most about the way they were able to close out that Colorado State game?
Yeah, I think it shows resiliency. I think you look at every single season for every team, right? Teams that have success, there's going to be moments of adversity, throughout the season. You can't flinch, and they didn't flinch in that moment. They had some belief all the way through, and it certainly carried over for them at the end of the game.
Front left, James.
Certainly a small sample, but what is it on the deep shots offensively that you think is just off, just slightly on a couple so far? Is there a particular rhyme or reason, or is it just a small sample that 2 or 3 shots?
I think it's a small sample we'll get better at. I think we got to create that in practice more, which we did today, right? We worked on shots downfield, a little bit more today in practice, and it's something we want to be able to execute at a high level.
Front right, Zach.
Hesitate to ask, but how have Nishad and Justin been progressing at this point in the season?
Good.
Back, Matt.
Small sample size through 3 games, but their defense has 10 turnovers. I think it's tied for the most in the country. Just what's made them so effective at causing those plays and getting the ball back?
Yeah, they're a havoc team, right? They find ways to make sure their players have good vision of the ball, right? They have some instinctive players that play with a level of aggressiveness that you can see, and they do some challenging things that are going to create that.
Second row left, Eric.
Patrick Herbert, just kind of what have you seen from him, his emergence? And I know he's kind of his first year maybe fully healthy in a while. You started to see him look like the player that he can be.
Yeah, I think what he's proven is he's a guy that we can trust on the field to execute at a high level, to do his job. He's always very assignment sound, and he's done some great things when he's gotten the ball in his hands or when he's challenging for an opportunity to go get a block. I mean, really that entire tight end unit I'm really proud of. I know there was a moment in the game on Saturday where I went up to Terrence and I gave him a hard time about a catch or something. He goes, "Coach, I don't care about any catches. I just want to control the C gap." And when you start hearing your players talk about things like that, start saying the right things about what they want to accomplish for their team, and it doesn't necessarily matter who gets the glory or who gets the praise. I think that unit's a great example of, guys taking care of their job and doing what they have to do for the team.
Front row left, James.
On their side over the last couple of weeks, they've talked a lot about making things personal, taking things personal, having some rivalry games that became more personal. You have guys here who were on that team and guys who've coached here who used to coach there. Do you think that there's anything to a Nico Reed or your interior defensive line after the left tackle said what he said last year? Are there personal elements in your locker room for this matchup this season?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think every game's different. I'm sure Nico wants to go out there and perform really well. He doesn't have to make the moment any bigger. But I think the reality is that our team just wants to go out there and perform well every time they touch the field. So I don't know if that really answers the question. I'm sure I can't speak to somebody else's feelings.
Front right, Zach.
Pro Duck, Brendan Schooler had an impressive field goal block last night. I'm curious if you saw that and if you have any ideas of maybe copying that and throwing it into the playbook for you guys.
That was the short motion one in, right? Yeah, I did see it on Twitter. Maybe, yeah. We'll see, right? I hope they don't go on 2, right, or change up the cadence. That might make it a little bit harder, but it feels like they had a good beat on what that was going to work like. We always love seeing our Ducks have success.
Back right, Trevor.
Just given the way that Deion's used a lot of bulletin board material, do you regret at all what you said at Oregon Media Day back in August?
No, I don't regret anything that said, for this program. At the end of the day, obviously, I wasn't talking about Dion's team. I'm talking about the past and the future for our team. But if that serves as material for them, great, right? I don't think it's going to have any bearing on the game and the success of the game.
Front left, James.
I think you also mentioned during Pac-12 Media Day that there were going to be all kinds of matchups because of realignment, that matchups like this that was a conference matchup that's just going to go away. You're not going to see it for a long time. Might create some interesting matchups because of that. From your perspective, does this create something unusual because chances are you're not going to see them again for a long time? Is there a difference, like if you were playing them again next year, or does the fact that you're not playing them again for a long time make any difference at all?
It doesn't change the way you prep or play. It really changes post-game prep, right? When you know you're playing a team again, I think you take different notes, for after the game. But no, it doesn't really change much beyond that.
That's all we got, Coach.
All right.
Appreciate your time.